Hey students, welcome to our quantitative section of the course, and we're going to focus in this video on getting set up in Excel for quantitative data analysis. Now I've got a data set here called human services data set. This is just a selected set of data that's totally random and doesn't have anything to do with reality. But I want to kind of give you an introduction to Excel for those of you who may be new to Excel, or maybe it's been a while since you've used Excel and you want to have a chance to have a quick refresher before we start to dive into the analyses. Now, in general, we use Excel actually a lot of social workers. And I know I might be thinking, hey, we're social workers. We're social. We're talking to people. We are. However, just about any work that you're going to do is going to be tracking in some capacity. It doesn't matter what area of social work practice you are. I guarantee you're going to see Excel and Excel sheets in your practice at some point. So it's good to be familiar with it and have some command over it. So that way, when you go out into the workplace, you're not too worried about what your boss may be asking you to do, or when you become the boss, you have the ability to get the quantitative information you need to help your programs and services succeed. Now, in setting up a data set, whenever you have a data set of people in Excel, usually what you see are columns are what we call variables, right? So these are kind of things about the records. And the records here, in this case, in human services work are typically human beings, right? Sometimes you might see records be something like sales in business, but in here, we have our individual people. In column A, we have a participant ID, right? Put that out there. And usually what we do in human services when you're doing data analysis work is to try to work with anonymous data. So you won't always see individuals here. It can usually be helpful just to be working with participant ID records that track people across different sets of data. And it can be a useful tool to be able to redact it, but also to track people over time, particularly because sometimes names change. So having a number that doesn't can be helpful in your data set. A second variable here, we have this entry date. This is in a date format. You'll see up here, this column right here shows all the different formats in Excel, from dates, times, percentages, fractions, text. Most things will show up as general or number or a date. And usually those are what they kind of show up as. So that's just a heads up that there are different types and formats of data, and it's useful to know that dates are tricky on their own. And so you'll see if those are formatted as dates, you can take a little look at and see or learn more about dates by kind of doing some Google research on that. Here we have age of the participant, gender, race, ethnicity. A lot of times you'll see these are kind of the three demographic variables that you almost always see in data sets, age, gender, and race, ethnicity, collected in different ways at times. Race, ethnicity is combined as one variable here, though I think as I shared in this course, it's usually best practice to do, if you're doing a survey, a select all that apply, in which case you would have multiple variables for race, ethnicity. But in this case, to keep it simple, we have it just as one as you're getting used to your Excel skills. Here we have services received. So we have basically a categorical variable is what we call this. This is when you have variables as categories rather than numbers. Same thing for race, ethnicity, and gender, where this participant received some type of service like a job training or counseling or therapy or housing support, right? These again, just fictional examples. Then lastly, over here we have what are called outcome or sort of output and outcome measures, right? So here we have a pre and post score on a measure of self-efficacy. So you can imagine if people were taking these, enrolling in our case management program, and we asked them about, we really wanted to focus on helping develop people's self-efficacy skills, that ability, that psychological ability to be able to recognize that, if you believe something, you can do something, then you're more likely to have success with it, right? So we're hoping we're improving self-efficacy. We'll see if the pre-score and post-scores are a little different. That'll be one thing that we analyze in our data set here. We also have a satisfaction score on 1 to 5, so we can get a sense of how people responded and if maybe people's satisfaction differed by some of these categories that we collected. So that's kind of an introduction to this data set. Again, on top, our variables are the columns. Those are the variables. And then rows, we have participants. We use IDs to identify information. And then we have our different types of variables, which include dates, numbers, and categories, typically what we see. Sometimes you'll see for text variables, you'll see the word string be used as well. So just know that that's a term that might come up as well. A few things to keep in mind. It's good to keep your data compact here. So you'll notice that I don't have any blank columns in here. Like you wouldn't want to have a blank column in here. It just kind of makes things a little more more complicated. And we don't see data that are missing rows or anything like that too. So it's helpful to keep the data organized as you're doing your work. Now, in the next video, I'll start to talk a little bit about cleaning data using formulas and charts.